slowly starting to realise it probably wasn't the smartest move because I now get all the noise.
Oh, right. So, yeah. Yeah. I'm at the back of the house, so I'm actually pretty quiet here.
Well, that's a good thing. That was a smart move. But anyway, Mr. Marky Clayton, welcome to our 3 p.m. session.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
It's so nice to see you.
It is good to see you too.
How's lockdown life treating you?
Lockdown life is treating me probably the same way that it's treating everyone else. We're a little bit over it, and we want to get out and do stuff, and we just can't. And it's a bit frustrating, but it is what it is.
It just is, isn't it? Yeah. And tell me, have you been doing anything exciting, any gardening or anything?
Gardening, no, I'm not a gardener. The only gardening I've done has been sitting out in the sun with a cup of coffee and stuff like that in between meetings and doing what I'm doing. So, yeah, that's about as close as I get to the garden.
So you're not a gardener?
Not a gardener at all. Actually, I really have got this lovely idea that I would love to grow all my vegetables and become self-sufficient and that, but I've never got any further than maybe a couple of dead pots. And, yeah, so maybe one day.
Oh, you are hilarious. I actually thought you'd be a really good gardener.
No, not as yet. There's still time.
Absolutely there is. I mean, judging by today's news, we'll probably have a few more weeks of this.
We've got a bit of time, that's for sure. Yeah.
And tell me, what's been going on?
Well, I've been working from home. I've been very blessed and very lucky to be able to do that. I know that that's not everyone is able to do that, and some people are in dire straits at the moment, but I've been very, very lucky. Nestle have been great, and they haven't lost any staff actually through this whole process. So pretty much from last March was when we went into our first lockdown and was working from home. There was a bit of an interim period late last year where we did get back in the office a bit and we could get in front of customers and do some stuff. And then of course we find ourselves back here now again where I'm back home. So really most of my work at the moment is recipe development for new products that are coming out and stuff like that, which is quite good because I don't normally get a chance to do that stuff because I'm normally too busy to actually get that stuff done. So it means I can catch up.
I was actually going to say, so you're the executive chef for Nestle Professional.
Yeah.
What does the executive chef of Nestle Professional do?
Right, very good question. And look, I think the list is quite long. And
thank you. I thought it was a pretty good question.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I mentioned recipe development, and along with that goes obviously testing recipes as well. So we need to test them to make sure they work. I do quite a bit of that stuff, which often leads to photo shoots as well for brochures, magazines, and the like, and maybe websites as well. Product demos, do quite a lot of product demos, both in-house, well, internal for staff and for salespeople as well, but also for end users and customers as well. And that goes hand in hand with training as well. So there's quite a bit of training, product training, how to use the products, how to get the best out of them, that sort of thing.
Product training with Nestle staff or with prospective clients?
No, actually Nestle product and actually training on how to get the best out of them and use them from the customer's point of view. So if we're doing it to a customer, we find out how the customer works, and then we go in and we try and tailor something that's going to fit within their business or operation. And then there's development. Now, we don't actually do the the product development on site. That's something that happens in Singapore or in New Zealand. But what happens is there's this thing where we actually do like a gold standard of whatever it is we might be. Say it's a creme brulee. We do a gold standard creme brulee. We then send that recipe off. They do a dry mix to actually do that. They send it back. We taste it. We do a taste panel. And then it goes to and fro, probably for about a year until we get it to how we want it. And that's the process. So it's quite an interesting process, and it does take a while. And then there's product claims testing as well. So things like bain-marie stability for products. So when we bring a new product up, that all has to be tested. So I do a lot of that as well. And then that brings me on to Nestle Golden Chef, which is a big chunk of what I do. And
is that right? I didn't realize that it would be such a huge chunk of what you do. And the Nestle, so continue on and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, look, that kicks off around June in a normal year, and it'll actually finish up in September. So really from June, everyone knows from June really to July, I'm traveling all around the country and overseas as well to actually judge in that competition and be part of that competition. So that's a very sort of busy time for me, travel schedule in a normal world. Right now, it's not so normal. But that's been that case for quite some time. So that's a very big part of it. And that's a very, very, really enjoyable part of the job that I do, because I left an industry which I love. And a lot of people go into food service and they kind of disappear from the industry, or they're disconnected from the industry. But I haven't felt that, because I've actually always still been involved with the young chefs and what's going on. So I find that a really satisfying part of the job that I do.
So talk to me about the Nestle Golden Chef's Hat. How long has it been running for?
Okay, it's 56 years, I believe. So in some shape or form, there has been a competition. It's not always been called the Nestle Golden Chef. It's been had other names over it, but over that period of time, that competition has been run and sponsored as a way of injecting back into the industry and promoting young chefs as we do now. It's a very big part of what we do, and I love the fact that the company thinks that is a valuable thing to do, because I believe it is.
Absolutely. And there's been some amazing chefs come from that competition that have gone on to, take on the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like the who's who. Sometimes when you look back at the past contestants and you see where they are now, it's amazing. Yeah. It's a stepping stone.
And how have you seen, so what have the challenges been around having COVID and running the competition?
Well, look, last year we didn't have an option. We didn't want to cancel the competition. We felt the pain of the industry and the young chefs, what they were in, and a lot of them had lost their jobs. So we really wanted to deliver something last year. So we actually did it virtually. And the way we did it was through, we did have a physical cook-off, but the criteria for going into the final was done by food videos. So they sent in their own food videos, and we judged them from those videos. Not ideal, but it was a way that we could move forward with it. And then with the finals, we did actually, at that time, we couldn't travel. I couldn't travel to Melbourne, but Melbourne could hold their own cook-off. So we did it via a massive Zoom link. And we had a panel of judges on that Zoom link, which I was one of them, to oversee it all. And then all the different regions, including New Zealand, which was their first year last year, were part of that final. So we did manage to pull it off. Very proud that we did, but it wasn't, I hope we never have to do it again. Because really cookery is about eating and tasting and comparing across.
Absolutely. It did definitely create some challenges, but I know the Australian Culinary Federation are very supportive with the Nestle Golden Chef's Hat as well. And
absolutely,
I've been lucky enough to even be a judge of Newcastle, I think I was at, or in Sydney as well. It's definitely a wonderful competition.
Yeah.
So tell me, Mr. Mark, where did your career start? I know that you've worked in Michelin establishments, but what drove you into this industry?
Okay. All right, I'm going to give you a real honest answer here now.
I really want that.
Yeah, you're going to get one, because it's the only one I know. And at school, you get the careers guys come around and they ask you what you want. And look, she asked me lots of questions. She said, what about metalwork? I went, no, I'm bad at that. What about woodwork? No, I'm really bad at that. What about, she just went through the whole list of careers, thoughts of where I could go, what I could do. And it was really not looking good. Then she asked me a question. She said, what about cooking? Do you like to cook? I said, I love to cook. And that was it. It was kind of like, it was the only thing I could do. So I fell into it like that. My brother was a chef as well.
Okay.
So he's 4 years older than me. So he was also into it. So it kind of, I just fell into it and went into it with him. And, I did a full-time, back then we used to do a full-time chef's course. And I did that for 2 years, and then I left. And my first job was a Boodles in London, which is a very famous old gents club in London where all the politicians go and things like that. But it wasn't until I actually left there and went to the Capital Hotel in Knightsbridge, and it had a Michelin star, that I actually got the whole bug about Michelin stars, and the quality was another level up. And that's when I got hooked on the whole thing. Yeah.
Wow. So where did you grow up?
I grew up down in Kent, which is, Medway Towns. That's where I grew up. And then I moved up to London because the travelling was just too much, and I ended up living sort of up in Sidcup area, and then also in Battersea as well, before coming to Australia.
And so what is your fondest memory of being in the UK, and which restaurant or establishment that you worked in really opened your eyes up to the industry?
Right. I've got to say it was the Capital Hotel, because it was the first place that I worked where I saw a real professionalism, I saw a real diligence for quality, and a real pride for what they did. So I was that was my first glimpse of that. And I didn't get it straight away. I've got to say, it took me a little while. I was a slow learner, but I worked there on 2 different stints. I worked there for a while, and then I went away, and then I came back, and that second time I was there as a sous chef, and really completely and utterly committed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what made you come to Australia?
No, that's another question. Another good question. I was actually working in a country house hotel, East Royal Manor. I was the head chef there. I'd been there about 3.5 years. They were in the position, it was a privately owned place, and they were actually just being bought out by a group. And I was kind of thinking, maybe this is a good time to move. I've been there 3.5 years. And I was kind of whinging a bit to my wife, saying, I don't want to go back to London. By this time I had a couple of kids, and I didn't want to go back to London. It's just in the too hard basket. She just said, we don't have to go back to London. The world's a big place. And that was, oh, wow, yeah, never thought of that. So literally, I'm talking literally, the next day, I filled in the forms for Australia. And why Australia, I don't know, probably because I knew a couple of people who are out here. And within 7 months from that time I filled that form in, I had resident visas for me, myself and my family to go to Australia, which I did not expect. And I had a year to make the decision to go. And we were young, and we just said, hey, let's just go. We can always come back. And we just sold everything and ended up with 2 weeks holiday accommodation booked in Manly. And that was it, with 3 kids, kids, all under 5. We had nowhere to live after that 2 weeks, and we had no job. I had no job. So looking back, it's like, wow, that's either stupid or it's brave. I'm not sure which, but it all worked out. It was all good. And I had a good friend, Liam Tomlin, and Jan, who I know very well and worked with. They very kindly moved out of their place and allowed us to move in for a couple of weeks to find a place. And we found a place in Crow's Nest because that's where they lived, and we got our first rental there. And then I got a job at the Observatory Hotel, which was even better.
Oh, wow. So you were at the Observatory Hotel, and that's back in the day when it was, and it's still beautiful. It's
a beautiful hotel. Yeah. It's a 100-bedroom boutique hotel. And I took over from the person that started it, which was Kit Chan. Was it Kit Chan? Yeah. She came out from Anton Mossman. She opened it, and then I started working with her for a little while, and then I took over as exec chef after that.
And how long were you there for?
About 2 years, 2.5 years maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
And where did you go from the Observatory Hotel?
I then left, and I did a few things actually. I worked for Fairfax Group, and I did a bit of corporate work and corporate catering then, and that was enjoyable because that was doing all the little boardroom stuff in those very high fancy places, and that was good. I did that. I even did a teaching. That's when I did my teaching qualification, and then I did a little bit of teaching as well. And then I set up my own business, and then I worked for the Union Club for 6 years, which was amazing. You know, that was just a bit like Boodles actually back in the day, but going full circle and doing that and bringing it up to sort of date and standard and whatever, which was quite a challenge, but it was good.
So going from sort of that Michelin sort of standard of food, I suppose, where it's fine dining,
yeah,
into a corporate role,
mm.
How do you manage that, and how do you take your food philosophy with you?
Okay, that's a good question too. Look, I think I've had quite a long career, and by the time I got to go into the corporate sector, I would pretty much sort of say, I've done that, got the t-shirt, you know, whatever. I didn't want to keep doing the same thing. You know, the repetition of opening places, going in as exec chef and doing all that, building up the staff, changing the menus. After a while, that's a lot of the same. Yeah. And I didn't want to keep doing the same. So the role, I kind of fell into the role with the Nestle, and it was a contract role to start with. And I didn't even realize these jobs existed. I didn't even realize that big companies like that had a value for what chefs know and what they can bring. So it was a real eye-opener for me. But I found it fascinating because it was different, and I was doing different things on a day-to-day basis. It took a while to get my head around it because it is quite different. It wasn't overnight. It took a while to even understand what I was supposed to be doing, to be honest. But yeah, got there in the end.
So how long have you been at Nestle for?
9.5 years.
Really? You're coming up to long service.
First time ever.
That's pretty impressive.
That's pretty impressive, yeah. I hope I make it.
Oh, I'm sure you will, and you'll go far, far beyond. You'll probably come up to double long service. But talk to me about product development. And when you have a product, what is the time? I know you mentioned before that it took 12 months to go, but is it 12 months from the time that you start to create the recipe all the way through to it actually hitting the shelves?
Look, it does vary enormously, and it does depend on the product, and it depends on how well the product development goes. Sometimes it goes really, really well, and they just nail it, and you know, we have 2 or 3 conflabs, and then we're on the way. Other times, not the case, you know, and sometimes it falls over halfway through as well, you know, where it may not meet the price, but by the time we've got there and we've got what we want, it no longer is commercially viable anymore, and it just falls over and doesn't work out. So there's all sorts of frailties that can happen along the way. So there is no set time. We just keep doing it until it happens and gets through to the whole process. It's a very complicated process. You can imagine with a large corporate company that's global, it is not an easy process to take a product from an idea to actually seeing it commercially available. But we have excellent teams that actually work through all that stuff as well, because there's a lot to look at.
You really are fortunate, I have to say, with the people that work within the Nestle business that I've met. Like they really are they're just such genuinely great people, and they're so passionate about the industry. I mean, you know, I've done quite a bit of work with the Nestle team over the years, and fortunate to also sit on the World Chefs Committee for International Chefs Day, and Nestle are the major partner for that initiative. And each year we get to celebrate chefs and the contribution they make towards the industry, and it's just so fantastic in that whole healthy eating, etc.
Yeah.
So as we start to talk about health, one of the Marky Clayton traits that I probably found to be the most endearing about you is your level of ability to care and support, and your resilience. And until we kind of were introduced to it, I had no idea that you were involved in the chaplaincy, which is the counselling and support service for the industry. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, I got into chaplaincy. I actually did a course a few years ago now. I thought it would be a good course to tack on to what I do, because it kind of ties in nicely with what I believe and think. And it's basically, I mean, their philosophy is supporting people through life. Now, we all know life can be tough. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how much money you've got, life throws its little curves. And I guess, you know, when anything happens in this world, if it's a natural disaster, a flood or bushfires or, you know, earthquakes, whatever it is, there's always chaplains on site just to work through and work through with people. They don't have all the answers, they don't solve all the problems, but what they do is they've got a very good understanding of how to listen and unpack with people through the tragedy in their lives. And I guess that's what you learn and what they teach you. And they also teach you how to refer to the professionals wherever they're needed. And that might be counselling services or emergency food care or, you know, whatever, drug and alcohol rehabilitation as well. So I got involved in that. And I think it's something that is desperately needed in our industry. I think we are in need of some sort of support there for mental health issues and whatever. And there are many people who are involved trying to do that. But I think what we need is something on the ground that's actually practical. And I guess that's my attraction to that, because it is very practical. Now, it does come with like a Christian foundation, but they have no hidden agendas. They're not there to convert people. They're really there as a carer for whatever's going on. And I really like that.
I really like it as well. And I like the fact that they've done a lot of work with the Defence Force.
Yes, they have. Yes.
And I know that when I was first introduced to it, the similarities between the pressures that we have in our industry, and then also what happens sort of from a defence perspective, whilst they're not the same, there's some similarities there.
Very
Would
much
that be fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, there are similarities right across that. Yeah. So I think that, you know, I think there is a need, and I don't know how to do that, and I don't know how to activate that, because it seems like a huge task. But I really think there needs to be someone who's actually forward thinking, that can actually put a little bit of money forward to actually make that happen, because I think it's needed right across the land.
And I think it's more now than it's ever been, in that anxiety levels, you know, like just anxiety. It's people that are normally so resilient and kind of submerge that anxiety feeling, that are all of a sudden having anxiety. That's right.
Yeah, it's almost a modern day plague, actually, anxiety. I don't fully understand it, but you know, because we've had terrible times in the past as well, and it's been, people have gone through, you know, wars and all sorts of things. But I don't know. I think it's a testimony of how everyone's working, how everyone's living, how fast-paced life is, and the pressures that are on people. A combination of all the above. And I think, yeah, anxiety is a real challenge and a real problem that needs to be dealt with.
And I think, like, you and I were talking about it a little bit before, and I was like, stop, like, we got to talk about this, you know, openly, so, because I feel like it's so important to kind of capture it. But, you know, we've kind of been brought up with this culture that if you're not seen, you're not doing your job, you know, and now people are forced to work from home, or unfortunately in our industry, they've been stood down because they're operational. Yeah. It's impossible for them to work from home.
That's right.
And, you know, that I hope that when we come out of this, there's that little bit more understanding, I suppose, of that that culture within workplaces, to be able to trust in their teams. And
yeah, it's the industry is a bit of a sort of turning point, I think. And I think it really is interesting how we move on from this. I think we need strong leaders, good leaders, that are actually going to push for that type of care and help for people moving forward. Our industry hasn't always been a proud force for that. So I think it needs to change. And I think it has to change, because I think now we have such a shortage of people. We can't afford to, they're not indispensable anymore. We need to do something to keep them and keep them engaged.
100%. You know, when we talk about the industry, and we talk about there being, you know, 84,000 venues across Australia, or whatever it is, it's around that number. It's a big industry, yet it's still quite a small industry. You know, we do come together, and I feel like with COVID in particular, we've really started to support each other in a positive way, and started to remember why we came into the industry in the first place, and what it is that we love about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and there's always something good that comes out of something bad.
I agree, totally agree. And Tim Collette just said, care is a good word, Mark. Let's hope we all come out of this with a new energy and empathy. Actually, that's the word I'm looking for. It's empathy. Being able to put yourself into somebody else's shoes just for a minute, and understand where it's coming from their perspective, as opposed to being too busy all the time to,
for sure,
to do that.
But
it's interesting. I mean, you know, one of the areas that probably concerns me coming with the situation we're in at the moment is burnout. You know, I mean, we're all trying to learn a new way of life, and it's very different to what we're used to, right?
Absolutely. I don't know. I think it's and it's ongoing as well, because we don't have much of a light at the end of the tunnel right now. So I guess time will tell how we navigate through that. But it is a tough situation to be in, and we are going to have to think differently as we move forward. And I think employers especially going to have to think differently.
And what would be some ideas? Like, if we were to start to generate some ideas, what would that perfect world look like, do you think?
Oh, well, I've got to look.
I'm putting you on the spot now. Sorry.
No, but that's okay. I've got to look to people like Anton Mossman. Anton Mossman is such a person that I look up to, and I love his style. I love his management style. At the age of 29, he took over the Dorchester in London. Who the heck can do that at 29? I don't know, but he did. And his understanding of how to handle people, how to engage with people in a place that is so huge, is nothing short of astounding. We need a few more Anton Mossmans. We need a few more people with that philosophy and that understanding to be able to build people up, to be able to care enough to talk to them and to find out where they're at, and to nurture their careers. You know, that's just almost non-existent in some places, in some people's mindsets as well, which is a shame.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I hope that, you know, the one you said to me this morning, you know, Vanessa, what are these sessions all about? And I think that the way that you just said that is that these sessions are to build people up through what inspires you, for example, you know, because we're all kind of searching for that golden nugget at the moment. It's really interesting to find out where people are drawing their strength from.
Absolutely.
So that brings me to, let's change gears a little bit. And so, no, actually, how do people reach out to the chaplaincy if they were wanting to?
Okay. There's several ways you can do that. I actually would love if anyone out there has got some ideas on how we can put together a force of chaplains across New South Wales. Maybe we just begin with one state, New South Wales, that are available specifically for people in the industry. I think what we need to do is just try and connect with Chaplaincy Australia, which are a national body, and float the idea with them and find out what is involved in actually making that happen, what needs to happen to get there, because I think that is a real hands-on solution to getting a reach into people's lives that are doing it tough for whatever reason, whether it's COVID or whether it's unrelated to COVID. I think to have that resource would be amazing for our industry, and I think it's sorely needed.
Do you have to be religious?
No, not at all. Not at all. To be a chaplain, you have to understand the foundation of where it comes from, and you have to have an idea of that. But to actually sit down with a chaplain, and that subject's not even going to come up. it's not about that. It's about your issues and understanding your issues and how the chaplain can help that and direct you in the right place. So yeah.
And how long did it take you to become a chaplain?
I did the course. I'm trying to think back now. It was about 10 to 12 months, because I had to do work placement as well in that as well, and I had to do it around my job. So it was a part-time thing that I did, and then every now and then I went in for, I think it was like 3 days at a time to do block sessions, and then also I did in my own time. I did some work experience. Actually, I chose an aged care home, and I spent some time there.
You know, the one area that stands out to me that could really use this type of support is the competition world.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, because I've seen over time when everyone that goes in these competitions think they're going to win. Yeah. Like they really do think they're going to win. Yeah. And just seeing the devastation and the reality when they don't win and how they deal with that. But even those that do win, being able to manage the success of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a high pressure environment. I mean, we work in high pressure environments, but yeah, competition is like another level high pressure environment. So yeah, I agree. I think it's good to have people on hand that can look out for that stuff.
Especially too when, you know, these kids are traveling and they're away from their family, their friends. They're probably not eating as well as what they would normally be used to doing. Yeah. Just to have some sort of like little support around them, I think it'd be really valuable, and it'd probably lead a lot more people into that competition world as well.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
So Mr. Billy Fox said, a real legend of Australian food service. I know my career is all the better for meeting Mark.
Oh, good old Billy. We had a great time in Italy, did us, when we went for the Golden Chef prize trip, which was amazing.
So that was Billy Fox and Matt Wells? That
was Matty Wells as well, yeah. Great time.
You've been an amazing support to Matty, like, you know, just the struggles that he's gone through and what you've done to support him, and Billy and everyone in the industry has supported him, but you've gone above and beyond.
I just love to see what's happened in his life. He's actually got life given to him for the first time with that transplant, and that changed his life. And that was all around the time of, you know, when he came back from Italy, he was on the actual list, and then it happened very quickly from there. But it was a long road for him, but it's great to see where he's at now. It's awesome.
It's actually funny you should mention that, because my memories came up on my phone. I think it was Friday. So I'm not too sure if that coincides with the anniversary of when he had the transplant or not. But yeah, it was interesting that anniversary came up, and so yeah, it was an amazing journey. But to see two boys like that go from, I mean, how long were they were in the competition, the Nestle Golden Chef's Hat, how many times before they actually won it?
Oh, look, Billy's been in it, he'll probably correct me, but I think it's 3 times up until that point before he won it. He won it the 3rd time, I think. And Matty, I think it was Matt's first time. Yeah, so yeah, but yeah, it's amazing.
Matty would be saying that Billy won it because of his skills.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure he did say that, actually. I'm sure he did. Yeah. One of the things I love about the competition is that when everyone arrives for the finals, they're all shy and they all don't know each other at the beginning of the week. And by the end of the week, you see this transition of people that actually are all one, and they're all like mates for life. And, you know, I love that. That's such a great transition to see and witness.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So tell me about Italy. What was Italy like?
Italy was amazing. I mean, we did so many good things over there. I'm amazed at the food in Italy. I mean, I thought the food was going to be good, but man, the food was good. Just a simple food, like a bowl of pasta, but it was just packed with flavor. We had some really great food experiences there. We went to the Parmesan factory and watched them make Parmesan. And we went on this tour and we did all this crazy stuff. And it was just, yeah, it was really, really fantastic. Great experience.
And what other produce did you see over there that just blew your mind?
Oh, look, you know, the tomatoes in Italy are just like, you know, they're nothing like tomatoes anywhere else. They're just something else. And you just see, they're just so product driven. It's all about the goods that they use. And it all comes from a local area, and it's all crafted. And, you know, I mean, we watched the whole balsamic vinegar journey. And these guys that make
really?
There's not that many that do it because they just do it for the love. They don't make any money out of this stuff, even though it's extremely expensive. The process takes so long that it's just not worthwhile financially. But they still do it because they love producing something that is so good. So they've just got a real love and a mentality that we could all learn from.
So was that made in in the barrels?
Yeah, in the barrels, yeah.
Wow.
And we went in there and watched that whole process. It was fascinating. And of course, we ended up buying some as well, bringing it home.
Oh, that's awesome. And what about, did you eat some really great, I don't know, some desserts and some wonderful breads? And
the wonderful breads was the best bread I've ever tasted in my life was at Ossieta Francescana.
Oh,
so we actually we went there, and thanks to Matt, actually, it wasn't even in the itinerary, and Matt just they were doing their stage there, so they did their sort of work experience there, and then of course Massimo was great. He did a fabulous job, and they did great there. But because they were there, he just went online and he made an application for a table. Of course, they recognised him and the fact that he was doing his work. So they got in. We all got in, and we had dinner, and it was amazing.
Really?
Yeah. And the bread. Tell me about the bread. The bread was incredible. I've never tasted bread like it. And the grissini sticks came in a big bundle on the middle of the table, and they were hot. And then you ate them, and then they would come along, you know, 10 minutes later and take them away. And you think, oh, you know, I've only eaten half of them. But they bring back a new lot that were freshly warm. And it was just,
oh, really?
It was just another level. It was amazing.
You know, that's actually really interesting because, you know, watching Netflix and the Chef's Table and all the rest of it, and one of the traits that always comes through is they talk about that symphony of the restaurant and how the front of house and the back of house, they work in unison, and it's so beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it's an experience. The whole thing is an experience. It's not just about the food, it's an experience, and it takes all night.
And even the music that they play is all sort of set to play to different courses and to the way that people are enjoying the evening. Yeah. It's all very psychological, isn't it?
Yeah. And very expensive too.
Thank you, that's where they get it. But so what was Massimo like? Did you just...
It was great. I mean, my first time I saw him was I was standing outside the restaurant, and he came down on his bike, like he was just arriving to work on his bike, on his push bike. And he came down the road, and there was someone walking down there, and he just prodded them with a newspaper or something like that, and made them jump, whizzed in, parked his bike, and then walked into the restaurant. And I thought, well, that's how he starts his day. It's just, but very natural, very normal. Nice guy.
Did you do a tour of the kitchen?
I went into the kitchens and stuff, but I didn't do a tour of the place. But obviously the guys probably did. There's a lot of chefs in there in a small space, a bit like the Fat Duck as well. A lot of chefs.
So you went to the Fat Duck as well?
Yeah, we did a few years earlier. We went to the Fat Duck and did the whole thing there as well.
And what was your favourite dish at the Fat Duck?
Oh, gosh. I can't honestly remember one particular thing. I think, once again, it's like this cohesive experience that I think you come away with, as opposed to one particular thing. And it's just that that whole theatre that's involved with what you're eating. You know, the headphones, the smelling stuff, and all you know, squirting things up your nose to get the smell of this before you eat this, and all that stuff. It's just amazing, and it's just go away.
It's actually incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great.
That whole molecular.
Yeah.
I actually hope to have Nanat on here. I haven't actually spoken to him about it. I'm just putting it out there, but I really want to have Nanat on here and to kind of explore that molecular gastronomy. I just think he is just amazing.
Yeah.
Have you ever got into it? Have you ever got into the molecular?
No, to be honest with you, I haven't. I've done the odd thing, but no, I've never really got into it in a big way because I've never had by the time it came out, I was actually sort of, you know, moving out of the kitchen and whatever else in it. So it was never really something that we got highly into.
Yeah. So how much are you missing the Nestle shop right now?
Yeah, look, it's not just the shop, it's my kitchen is sitting there just gathering dust, and, you know, obviously the people and the get-togethers in the morning with the coffees and stuff like that. So yeah, it's there's a lot to miss, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
Oh, absolutely. What do you think the next big food trend will be?
Oh my gosh, if I knew that, you know, I could probably retire today. Food
is
trend.
it a flavor? Is it a food? I mean, I just can't help but think that we're going to really go I know that we already are, but really take hold of that whole local.
I think
connect to the farmer, connect to the producer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk about that. I think there needs to be more actual action about that instead of just showing that we do that, is actually doing it. And that's, I think, what I took away from Italy was that they just do it. They do it. And it's all a project. It's all about the product. I wouldn't call that a trend. I would just say that's almost like an evolution, an evolution into just getting better is doing that. I don't know what the next trend is. I would say, given the situation we're in now, everything's going to be pared back. And I think that out of that people will find creative ways to do more with less, because they're kind of forced into that. And that might not be a bad thing, you know, because we've all been through the bit where food's also complicated and there's so many things on the plate and there's so many this and that. It might be nice to actually pare back and just focus on maybe one or two components and do it really, really well. But I don't know. I don't know what the trend is. Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting. And where do you go to get your inspiration for recipes or just food inspiration?
Yeah, that's a good question too, because it's quite difficult sometimes to really where you get that from. I think just keeping an eye on what's going on around. We are very blessed to have the internet, and you know there is so much that you can do online to search for stuff and find stuff and get inspiration from it. So I think a lot of it is done that way these days. I don't have an unlimited budget to go and eat out like I used to in some past jobs I had. That was a real, I could just go out and eat in places and it was fantastic. And then I'd come back and write about it. And that was an inspiration. I don't have that. So I have to find other ways to do that. So obviously we as a food team in normal times, we still do go and eat out throughout the year as well, which does help as well. Yeah.
And in all of the places you've worked in, all of the places you've dined, have you got one restaurant or one place that actually stood out?
Yeah, definitely. Chez Nico in London. I worked for Chez Nico, and it was at that time 2 Michelin star. And I got to eat his food as well. And it's some of the best food I've ever tasted. And such an inspiration. The guy is untrained. He came out of the finance oil business or something, but he just had a passion for food. So he wasn't a trained chef, which had its own challenges, because when you are a trained chef and you're working with someone who's not a trained chef and they ask you questions that are completely outside the box, why can't we do this? And he taught me that. He taught me to ask questions and to not think just how you've been trained, just how you why can't you do that? Ask that question, why can't you do that? Why can't we try and do that? And, you know, but sometimes it was a dismal failure, but there were other times where it was absolutely genius. So I would pick him probably as being the greatest food, because he was all about flavour. It wasn't about pretty plates, he was about flavour. And I love that.
That is brilliant. And what's he, has he still got his restaurant now? Or
no, he's living in France now and in retirement. So I think he must be turning 80 in his 80s now. You know, it wasn't an easy character to work for. You know, he was a little bit crazy sometimes, and, you know, I don't suppose he'll watch this, but I would happily tell him that now. He was, and I think he would laugh. But he was passionate. He was passionate about getting that end result at any cost. And he did amazingly well. He went on to get 3 Michelin stars and then handed them back.
That's pretty impressive. Were you working there when it was 3 Michelin stars?
That happened when I was in Australia.
And do you think that culture has started to change now, where we're expecting perfection at any cost?
Sorry, what was the question?
So do you think that our culture in the kitchens has started to evolve, like everything else, where we are now sacrificing perfection above all costs?
That's an interesting one. I think it depends where, in what area you're working in. I think, you know, there's obviously restaurants that are still all about perfection and they've all got this drivenness to perform. But I think obviously they're the minority. They're the minority in our industry. Our industry is a very large industry, and that is a tiny little dot on the page as far as what represents the industry. But it's one that creates the most conversation, and it's the one we all love.
Yeah.
But it is very, very small. But I think the whole fine dining thing will never go away, because people just love that experience of it. But I think at the moment and going forward, it's going to be very restricted. I think it's been restricted for the last few years anyway, and it's been getting less and less. Casual dining is the way to go, and I think that is more what's going to happen in the future too. But you'll always have those people that just push the boundaries and just go for it.
It's actually really interesting you should say that, because we kind of have morphed into that more polished casual now, if you like, where, and it's actually a really nice place to be. You know, if you want to go that you know, fine dining, you know, there's establishments there, but the majority of the industry has now started to turn more towards that polished casual, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, right. Well, when you think back just, I don't know, 30 years and what you could get in Sydney 30 years ago to what you can get now, and it was pretty good then, actually. It wasn't bad then, but it's a much, much more advanced now. And so we're very lucky to what we have. Yeah, and you've only got to go to Europe to see sometimes the diversity that we have here, the choice that we have here is like off the charts compared to what you can get, say, in some of the European countries.
Yeah, I find that really interesting, you know, because we have got this potpourri of culture in Australia within the diversity of the chefs that we have. We are so fortunate that when it comes to cuisine choices and we talk about modern Australian, I'd be really interested to have your take on what you think modern Australian looks like. Yeah,
okay. Well, when I came from an English background, cooking sort of French, mainly French influenced food, because that was very much the dominant influence back in those days. When I came to Australia, what I loved about Australia was they didn't have any rules as such. You know, there was things you could do in French cooking, and there was just things that were a big no-no. And anyone who pushed those boundaries, you were tentative about pushing them because you were going to get criticised if you went too far. In Australia, that wasn't the case. It was, why not? Let's just give it a go. And look, I think Nouvelle Cuisine changed that a bit, you know, back in the day. But I just think Australia's got so many different sort of influences that they were just going, you know what, why can't we do this? And sometimes it's a dismal failure, but sometimes it really, really works. So I think that the freedom that you had as a chef in Australia is actually quite inspirational.
I love that. It's interesting because, you know, some of the businesses that I've worked with or, you know, for have sent people on, you know, case studies around the world to try and work out where Australia is in terms of our food culture.
Mm.
And the feedback that always comes back is that there's nowhere really that they've been that really is benchmarked on where Australia and what Australian chefs are doing.
Mm.
And you actually just nailed it when you said that we have this freedom.
Mm. It is.
We push the boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. We do. And some people do it extremely well too. Tetsuya, for
Really
instance, was, yeah, it was, you know, Tetsuya for years was the benchmark really of what he does and still doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very true. So tell me, you've got a dinner party on, Mr. Mark Clayton.
Yeah.
And you can have 10 guests at that table, and they could be anyone that you want. They could be past, present, or future.
Yeah.
Who would you choose to be around that table?
Well, look, I've got to say, if I didn't say my wife in the very first person there, I think I'd be in serious trouble. We met at 17. We've been married 39 years.
Oh, congratulations.
And I'm a chef, and she's still with me.
What did your wife do?
Well, my wife is an interior designer now, but she worked out front of house in Nico's, and she actually worked for Nico longer than I did. And she was amazing at the fine dining, you know, running the front of house. So she's done all sorts. She's very adaptive in what she does. And she stuck by me when the times when I never even used to come home for more than a day a week, pretty much, because that's just the life I led at the time. So it's amazing that we even still exist, really. And look, you know, the other 4 places will be taken up with my 4 daughters, because I've got 4 daughters, and they range from 34 down to 25. Like Sean is in New Zealand, Callan, Brogan, and Ryle. So that would take up half the tables. That would be it, because it's, for me these days, and I probably haven't always been able to say this, but it is completely, utterly about family. And at the end of the day, that's really what you've got. You know, on your deathbed, you're not going to be calling for your accolades of your restaurants or this and that. You're going to be calling for your family and your people. Yeah, that's what's going to matter.
And don't dare say your grandchildren, because your grandchildren are going to have they're going to have their own. They're going to have their own table.
No, I stop at the family there, and hopefully they'll bring their grandchildren. The other person I've already mentioned, and that's Anton Mossman. Anton Mossman is just such a. I've met him a few times, never worked with him, but I just admire him so much of just his philosophy and the way that he manages people. I think he is the absolute creme de la creme in that area. And he's had such an amazing career because of that as well. And if you think of all the people that have gone out underneath him, that have gone on to do great things, he's been such a great mentor to those people as well. So definitely would like him. Another chef would be Brian Turner. Brian Turner is a Yorkshire chef, English chef. And he was very much a hands-on mentor for me back in the day in London. I worked in his restaurant. I opened his restaurant called Turner's Restaurant as his head chef. That was my first head chef role. So I got real fond memories of just those days and just the crazy sort of hours we worked and all the stuff. But yeah, I definitely want him there because he's also such a character and such a got great sense of humour. So he'd actually brighten the table up. Another person that I thought about this earlier, someone that I just think is an amazing person, and that is Anne Frank. Anne Frank, what an inspirational young girl that is. And I think if you ever wanted to, like, we're doing it tough right now, we're doing it tough in COVID, and we've got a whole young generation out there, some of them reluctantly staying in lockdown and doing the right thing. They need to sit down with Anne Frank and have a look at her life and just put some perspective into where we're really at.
So people are going to be Googling Anne Frank. Tell us a little bit about Anne Frank.
Anne Frank was a Jewish young girl who kept a diary throughout World War II. And the diary, there's a book called The Diary of Anne Frank, and it just worked through her life, and in the end, she was killed, and she lost her life at a very young age, and probably her family did as well. I can't remember the exact story, but basically it was a very inspirational story of just being cooped up in this little hidey hole for so long, and just her brightness of character and attitude was amazing. So yeah, a real good story. The other person I'd have is David Attenborough.
Oh,
I find him such an amazing character, and he's got so many stories, and he's led a life that we could all just go, wow, wouldn't that be great? He's just incredible. And I've got a great interest in wildlife, and I'm into wildlife photography. I'm into bird watching. I'm a real bird, like wildlife geek, if you like. So to have him there would be, he just tells stories all night long, and I'd be there listening till long after everyone's gone. So that would be it. And the other person, last but not least, he is another family member, but he's my only family member left in my closest family, and that's my brother. And he's a chef, and he lives in England, so I don't see him very much, but I'd definitely like him to be there for that dinner party.
that's brilliant.
And I think that's it.
Well, I'll come be a wait person. So who would be your chef?
Well, I'd go and pick Nico, because I've already mentioned him. But if it was in Australia, I'd pick Tetsuya.
Okay.
Because he, to me, when I first came to Australia, I ate in a lot of places trying to get a gauge of what was going on. And I ate in Rockport and all the places that were there at the time that were at. And it wasn't until I got to Tetsuya's that I really benchmarked that against what I was eating in London in 2 Michelin star places and going, and to me, that was it. That was, he had the standard and the quality and the flavors that I was looking for. And I'm not saying the others didn't have it, but he really nailed it. So he would be the one for me.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? I've been fortunate enough to dine at Tetsuya, and it's an everlasting memory. It's just a beautiful, beautiful dining experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
I actually think in the modern day of chefs, if I was to mix Darren Templeman and Sun Siwoo together, I'd get probably, I think, the closest to Tetsuya, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's plenty of good choices out there.
There just are. There's just an amazing abundance of fabulous chefs. Yes. Well, my friend, I am so thankful to have a chat with you today, and I've loved seeing you, and I'm finding it, I can't stop looking at your beard. Your beard's growing.
Yeah, I'm going to be like a river pirate by the time I go back to work. Huh? Yeah, it's good to see you, and I'm really thank you for the invite. I'm really thankful that you actually invited me.
Oh no, I'm extremely grateful that you accepted. So thank you, and I hope that everyone that's been listening to this just takes away a little bit of something. I think it's been fabulous. We've been all around the world today.
We have.
All right, my friend.
Right.
Take
Thank
care.
You so much. Take care and stay safe.
Lots of love. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.